Okay, welcome to today's lecture. In this video, we're going to look at the phylum Pteridophyta and its classification. So, Pteridophyta, the plants here are also known as, they are called pteridophytes. Pteridophytes. So, examples of Pteridophyta are pteridophytes. These are the plants. So, what are the features of these pteridophytes, this plant? What are the features of the phylum Pteridophyta? So number one is that they are simple seedless vascular plants. They are simple, they are seedless vascular what? Plants. So being seedless simply means that they do not produce seeds. Being vascular plants means that they have vascular tissues, which is basically the xylem and the phloem. So these are structures that are responsible for the conduction of water, for the conduction of minerals, and also for the conduction of manufactured food. So pteridophytes are simple seedless vascular plants. They are seedless because they do not produce seeds. They are vascular plants because they have vascular tissues, which are the xylem and the phloem. Another feature of the pteridophytes is that they range greatly in size. They differ greatly in size. Usually, the smallest pteridophytes is the azolla plant. They are about 0.5 to 2.5 centimeters in height. So they range greatly in size, basically from the tiny azolla plants to tree ferns, to high tree ferns, which are about 25 meters in height. So you can see the difference between the two what? The two plants in terms of height. So they range greatly in size. Some are very small while some are very large. Then pteridophytes are found in moist, in shady, in cool, and also in humid environment. In other words, pteridophytes cannot be found in an arid environment, in a very dry environment. Pteridophytes cannot be found in a very dry environment, and the reason is because they require water for fertilization. So in their gametophyte generation, they require the water for their fertilization. Without water, fertilization cannot occur in pteridophytes. And just like the bryophytes, they are also referred to as the amphibians of the plant kingdom because actually they need that water for fertilization to occur. Then also they show alternation of generation, and this is a heteromorphic change in their life cycle. The two generations that are involved are the sporophyte generation and the gametophyte generation. So the main plant body is the sporophyte plant, is the sporophyte generation, and it is diploid in nature. What that means is that it contains full number of chromosomes. Then the gametophyte generation or the gametophyte plant is usually small in size and it is haploid in nature. What that means is that it contains half number of chromosomes. So the main plant in pteridophytes is the sporophyte plant. The gametophyte plant is usually small in size, very small in size, and like I said, it is haploid in nature because it contains half number of what? Of chromosomes. So this is somehow different from the bryophytes. So in bryophytes, the main plant body is the gametophyte generation, is the gametophyte plant, while in pteridophytes, the main plant body is the sporophyte plant. So this is a difference between the pteridophytes and the bryophyte. Both exhibit alternation of generation, but one of the difference in terms of alternation of generation is that the main plant body in pteridophyte is the sporophyte plant, while the main plant body in bryophyte is the gametophyte plant. So that's a major difference between the two. Then also the pteridophytes, they have true roots, they have true stem, and they have true leaves. And that is why they are vascular plants. And also they store carbohydrate as starch. Then also they have a secondary cell wall that is made up of cellulose and lignin. They have a secondary cell wall that is made up of cellulose and lignin. These two structures gives them the ability to grow very tall. So these are the main features of the pteridophytes that you should take note of. So having known this, the next thing that we should be looking at is the classification of the phylum Pteridophyta. So the phylum Pteridophyta is divided into four main divisions. We have division Pseudophyta, we have division Lycophyta, we have division Equisetophita, and division Pterophyta. So these are the four main divisions under the phylum Pteridophyta. Again, we have Pseudophyta, Lycophyta, Equisetophita, and Pterophyta. These are the four main divisions under the phylum Pteridophyta. So let's take the first one, which is division Pseudophyta. So the division Pseudophyta is the smallest of all living plant division. Plants in this division are known as coelentophytes. Coelentophytes. So these are examples, coelentophytes are examples of Coelentophyta, or they are plants under the division Coelentophyta. So the coelentophytes are the smallest of all living plant division. They are the smallest of all living plant division in as regards to the Pteridophyta, right? So they are the smallest of all living plant division. Then also they are the most primitive of all vascular plants. They are the most primitive of all vascular plants. Vascular plants are also known as trachophytes. So trachophytes refers to vascular plants. That is plants that have xylem and what? And phloem that are responsible for conduction of water, mineral, and manufactured food. So vascular plants are known as trachophytes. And we have two major phylum under trachophytes. We have pteridophytes and spermatophytes. So pteridophytes is what we're looking at here. The spermatophytes are the seed producing plants. They are the seed producing plants. And under that we have the gymnosperms and the angiosperms. So we'll look at this in our future classes. So back to the coelentophytes. They are the smallest of all living plant division in the phylum Pteridophyta, and also they are the most primitive of all vascular plants. So this is very important. You can be asked in the exam which of the following is the most primitive of all vascular plants. You should know they are what? The coelentophytes. Then these plants are rootless, but they have rhizoids for absorption. So you can see the plants here. They are rootless, but they have rhizoids, which are root-like structures that they use for absorption. Then the stem in coelentophytes is dichotomously branched. It is dichotomously branched and photosynthetic. So by being dichotomously branched, it means that as the stem grows, when it wants to divide, it branches to form two branches. Then when this branch wants to divide as well, it branches to form two branches. So this is the dichotomous branching into two. Di means what? Two. So the stem is dichotomously branched and photosynthetic. So you can see the stem, it is greenish in nature. That tells you that it can carry out what? Photosynthesis. Then coelentophytes have no leaves. Very important. And it is vividly shown here. They have no leaves. You can't see any leaf here. So they have no leaves. Then another important feature of the coelentophytes is that they possess homosporous synangium. They possess homosporous synangium. So the synangium is just plural is synangia, singular is synangium. So the synangium is just a collection of three sporangium. So this is a sporangium. Sporangium. This is a sporangium. It contains a lot of spores. So when you have a collection of three sporangium in groups, what this collection refers to is the synangium. right? So the synangium is just a group of three sporangium. Each of these structure is called the sporangium. Everything together, this cluster is known as the what? The synangium. So you can see a synangium here. This is a synangium containing three what? Containing three sporangium. So coelentophytes possess homosporous synangium. What that means is that the synangium, they are of the same shape and form. Homo means one. So the spores that are contained in this synangium or in the sporangium, they are of the same shape and form, and that is why they are called homosporous synangium. Homo means one, sporos refers to spores, then the synangium is what you have here. So they possess homosporous what? Synangium. Examples of the coelentophytes are Rhinia, Coelotum, and Mesipteris. Rhinia, Coelotum, and Mesipteris. So note these three basic examples of the coelentophytes. So having known these about the coelentophytes, the features in general, let's look at the life cycle, and this is very crucial because a lot of questions come from this aspect. So the life cycle of coelentophytes. It's very important that you should know that reproduction in coelentophytes can be asexual, then it can be sexual. In this video, we're going to focus basically on the sexual reproduction in coelentophytes, right? So, sexual reproduction, what that tells you that it involves two organisms. It involves two organisms. So, the life cycle of coelentophytes starts with the sporophyte plant. So, like we said before, that the main plant body in pteridophytes is the sporophyte. That's the main plant body. So, this is the main plant body, the sporophyte plant. The sporophyte plant is diploid in nature, and this is the generation that is responsible for the production of what? Of spores, right? So this is the sporophyte plant. The sporophyte plant contains the sporangium, and like we discussed here, when you have a cluster of about three when you have a cluster of about three sporangium, what you have is a synangium. So the synangium is here that contains the sporangium, and the sporangium contains the spores, right? So the sporophyte plant, so to say, is the generation that is responsible for the production of what? Of spores. And the spores are contained inside the sporangium. A cluster of three sporangia will give you the synangium. So inside this sporangium are the spore mother cells. It contains a lot of spore mother cells. So these spore mother cells will undergo a process called meiosis to give you four meiospores. And these four meiospores, they are haploid in nature. They are haploid in nature. So the sporangium contains the spore mother cells, and these spore mother cells, they are also diploid in nature. So when they undergo meiosis, the number of chromosomes is now halved to form a haploid chromosome, right? So each mother cell, one mother cell will divide to form four meiospores, and they are haploid in nature. So when these meiospores, remember the division will take place inside this sporangium. I'm just bringing out the spore mother cells. So when this sporangium now ruptures, it releases the meiospores, and on getting to a suitable substratum, on getting to a suitable environment, it develops into the gametophyte plant. So this is the gametophyte plant that you have here. And it is haploid in nature. It is haploid in nature. It is haploid in nature. What that means is that it contains half number of chromosomes. You know why? Because meiosis has occurred to have the number of chromosomes. So one of them will develop into what? The gametophyte plant. It is haploid in nature. So being the gametophyte generation, it means that it is responsible for the production of gametes, right? The male part of the plant is the antheridium. So this is the male part, and this is the female part, which is the archegonium. So during sexual reproduction, the antheridium swims through the thin film of water because this structure will be found in a very moist environment. So through the thin film of water, it swims and then goes into the archegonium to cause fertilization. And this is why pteridophytes need water for fertilization. This is why they are also called the amphibians of the plant kingdom, because without water, fertilization cannot occur. So the Antheridium swims through the thin film of water into the archegonium to cause fertilization. And after fertilization, a zygote is formed, and the zygote, which has been formed, then grew into a sporophyte plant. This young sporophyte is dependent on the gametophyte for its nutrients. So after some time, it grows, and then a full-blown sporophyte plant emerges. So this is all you need to know about the life cycle of coelentophytes. So it's very important that you should know that the life cycle starts with the sporophyte, which is diploid in nature, and then from the sporophyte goes to the gametophyte, which is haploid in nature. So therefore, we can say that the life cycle of coelentophytes is it is diplohaplontic. What that means is that there is a drift from the diploid sporophyte, from the diploid cell to the haploid chromosomes, or to the haploid generation. So from the diploid generation, which is the sporophyte, to the haploid generation, which is the what? The gametophyte. So life cycle of coelentophytes is diplohaplontic. This is very important. So just a quick recap. The life cycle of coelentophytes, like I said, starts with the sporophyte plant, and then the sporophyte plant is the generation that is responsible for production of spores. It contains the sporangium. So meiosis occurs in the sporangium to produce haploid spores. Then these spores grow into the gametophyte. Fertilization occurs in the gametophyte plant, and the zygote is formed. The zygote develops into what? The new sporophyte plant. So this is just a quick summary of the life cycle of coelentophytes. So with this, we come to the end of this lesson. In the next video, we'll look at the division lycophyta. Thank you very much for listening.